Hi, welcome into another episode of the Butt and Breneman Show. It's almost like a holiday this week. I personally think the Penn State-Ohio State game should have been a protected rivalry. It's always one of my favorite games of the season, but nonetheless, we do have it this year. Wow. Bren, excited to break this down with you. What are you looking for? What's the keys to the game? What does this game really mean to James Franklin and the Nittany Lions?
Well, you know what's funny, Jake, is you've mentioned the protected rivalry. I was saying that to someone. I said, it's a shame that Penn State didn't get a protected rival against Ohio State or Michigan. And whoever I was talking to, who works at Penn State, was like, "You think we want to have a guaranteed protected rivalry with Michigan every single year, or
Yeah,
guaranteed with Ohio State? Like, we'll take no protected rival any day of the week." But
I get it.
man, this game, it feels like such a massive game for both head coaches, for James Franklin and for Ryan Day. No matter what happens, there's going to be a meltdown from one fan base. I mean, it's going to be a complete meltdown one way or another. For James Franklin, you think about how much success he's had at Penn State. 6 of the last 8 seasons finished top 12 in the final playoff rankings. One of the few programs in college football to do that, but haven't been able to get over the hump. It's been since 2016 Penn State's beaten Ohio State.
Yeah.
For Ohio State and Ryan Day, I mean, this is the kind of game that you have to win at Ohio State. If you're Ryan Day and you spend all that money in your roster and you have the support that you have, the commitment has matched the expectation. The expectation has to be met at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And the expectation is you go to Happy Valley and win this game. For Penn State, I really believe, Jake, the key comes down to Penn State has to reestablish themselves as a dominant run team and control the pace of this game. It's been running back by committee with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, but one of the alarming things is Penn State hasn't had a 100-yard rusher in the month of October. It's been a while since one of those backs have taken over the game. Nick Singleton was out for a little bit, but really Penn State needs to try to control the pace of this game and figure out a way to dominate the line of scrimmage and have the game operate at the tempo they want it to operate. Same thing with Ohio State. They got to try to run the ball as well. I mean, Ohio State went out and spent millions to get Quinshon Judkins and keep Trayvon Henderson, and Will Howard had 10 rushing touchdowns at Kansas State last year. But against Nebraska, Ohio State only had 64 yards rushing on 31 attempts. So I think whoever dominates the run game will win this game.
No, I'm completely with you. And gosh, the another matchup where like the head coaches, the pressure, you could
Yeah.
sell me in both directions that Ohio State's under more pressure, Penn State's under more pressure. I mean, for Ohio State, think about, I just go back to the double-edged sword of expectations where this offseason we're hearing the legends of Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer and everybody say this is the most talented roster we've seen in this century. And it's like, whoa, okay. They have a chance to go undefeated. And then you go on the road, tough, close loss to Oregon. Man, what happens if you lose this one? Like, you might be on the outside looking in of the college football playoff if you lose this game. I mean, outside of this, they don't really have like a marquee win, right? Iowa's a good team,
Well,
Michigan State's a good team, but like you need this win to stay in that firmly in that conversation.
and Jake, you know what gets really interesting is just the talk around how much does this game really matter for Penn State? I mean, obviously it matters for James
Right.
Franklin and for the legacy and for what everyone will say. But if you win this game for Penn State or probably for Ohio State, but they have that loss against Oregon, obviously, if you win, you're probably playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship and have a
Yeah.
chance to lose to the number 1 team in the country right before the playoff rankings come out. Where if you're Penn State and you lose this game and then you're 11-1, miss the conference championship, you're probably in a pretty good spot for the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, do you want to be in the conference championship game and risk a loss when you're probably guaranteed to be in at 11-1? It is a 11-2 Penn State team that loses Ohio State and maybe a bad loss against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Are they still in the playoff? I mean, you think so, but you never know. So it's interesting how every game matters, but some of these games, if you lose, you still got a path.
I'm old school. I just say win. All this
Win.
stuff I can't keep track of it. I just go win, But yeah, like the pressure here is sky high. James Franklin lost 7 straight to these Buckeyes, and I keep wondering. We can't ask the same question every offseason. I'm getting tired of asking it. Is when is James Franklin going to take that next step? And
Yeah.
Penn State is okay, we talk about the expanded playoff and how exciting that would be because Penn State is a team that would have been in the playoffs every year, but that doesn't change anything. Like the fact of the matter is, eventually, James Franklin, Penn State have to win these types of games. And I love how you mentioned the run game because that's gonna decide it here. Buckeyes, I mean, not even cracking 100 yards versus Nebraska after what we saw Indiana do to them.
Yeah.
Shocking. They got real issues at that left tackle spot, and income they're in off the edge they're facing Abdul Carter and Deni Dennis Sutton, and of course Zane Durant's there in the middle, so you can't really double team. This is a critical game for the trenches to win. What do you make of the quarterbacks here? I know James
Yeah.
has said they're both will be ready, both may play, both will play regardless, just because of how they've used them. What's your thoughts on the quarterbacks and the importance of their health this weekend?
Yeah. I really don't know what's going to happen. My gut tells me that it'll be a Bo Pabula game, just with the fact that Drew came out of that game and it was a close game when he left. Like something had to be actually wrong for him to leave that game at that time.
Yeah.
So if Drew's healthy, great, and Penn State will start Drew. But Bo being in there does change the offense a little bit. Bo doesn't push the ball down the field as well, which means the run game is even more important for Penn State. The best friend of a quarterback who's new, who's young, who hasn't played a ton, and who isn't the drop back passer Drew will be that run game for Penn State. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out and which one actually comes out. I mean, Coach Franklin will probably milk that thing right to the last second he possibly can. I know they had the injury reports that come out before the game, but I bet we don't know who the starting quarterback will be for Penn State. Jake, the one other thing I thought of as you were talking about, this game back and forth. It's been 7 years since Penn State won. I mean, you look at how Penn State won that game in 2016. Special teams was such a big factor in that game. Penn State blocked the punt. Penn State blocked a field goal and ran it back for a touchdown to win that game. So special teams will be critical. Can Ohio State, whichever team blocks the kick, I mean, the chance of the winning goes up drastically. So if someone can make a big play on special teams, it'll swing this game completely one way or another.
Yeah, we talk about analytics, like blocking kicks, like the analytics say if you block a kick, it's something absurd, like 90% of games you win if you can block anything in the kicking game, which is fascinating.
Do you have a prediction, Jake, on this game before we move on?
Well, I'll say this real quick because I went back and watched the Wisconsin game, and Bo is such a dynamic runner, and that, my goodness, does that affect defenses? And I know Drew lost some weight and he's been dangerous there too, but Bo's ability to affect the game running the ball it's scary. And you know this, whenever you're playing a team that runs the triple option, I'll never see coaches more stressed out than the week you're preparing for a team that runs the triple option. Penn State isn't a triple option offense, but they ran it a few times with Bo back there.
Yeah.
It's just so tough to defend. So I think that's going to be the difference in this game. And I'm just telling you right now, Penn State at home, the issues of the running game for Ohio State, particularly that left tackle spot, and understanding what Penn State has on that defensive line. Gosh, man, I think Penn State's able to have more success running the ball, and I think Penn State wins a really close one.
Yeah, Penn State. I have Penn State winning. I think by like 3 or 4 points. It's going to be a great game. Happy Valley is going to be absolutely rocking. It's a noon game, but it almost makes it more exciting. I mean, you got to get. It's going to be hard to get to State College. I mean, you got game day in town. You got big noon kickoff. There's rumors of a certain presidential candidate making an appearance at the game, so it's going to be a zoo in Happy Valley.
Yeah. They got to stop the explosives. I mean, the one thing is Jeremiah Smith, he can even as a true freshman, he can single-handedly beat you. So I'm excited to see that guy in this moment as well. All right, another big one. Michigan, much needed win last week versus Michigan State. Beautiful competitive game, encapsulates the rivalry all the way down to some pushing and shoving in the post game. Man, did Sharon Moore need that one. And it feels like now Jack Tuttle announced his retirement. So this is Davis Warren's show the rest of the season with some Alex Orji splashed in there. Now you're hosting the #1 team in the Oregon Ducks, that they are like a freaking freight train coming down the tracks right at you. Like they're just rolling over their opponents. What are you expecting to see in that matchup?
Man, I thought that Michigan had a really good plan against Michigan State. The best we've seen that offense this season. The combination of having Davis Warren at quarterback, who can be a traditional passer for you and actually manage the game, and then using Alex Orji as a package guy, you get a few plays for him each drive. You got some plays like that's a great system right there. And
Yeah.
having kind of the 1-2 punch of Warren and Orji, I thought they did it really well against Michigan State. Also, it was good to see Michigan's playmakers make some plays. To see
Yeah.
Colston Loveland have 2 touchdowns, and Tyler Morris had a big play. Donovan Edwards had a couple of plays. Like, it was good to see those playmakers start to make plays for Michigan, because they weren't making them all season. So this
Yeah.
Michigan offense, they might have found something here, and going to be a completely different team. So that's why, I mean, not many people are talking about this game. I mean, Oregon's not just going to run all over Michigan and run Michigan off the field. This is going to be a competitive game, especially
Yeah.
with Michigan now finding their offense. And yeah, Oregon has struggled at some points this season. I mean, they struggled against some of the defenses. They struggled in some of the games earlier in the year. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Oregon pulls it out, but I do believe Michigan will make it a competitive game, and I think just get some more confidence back under for Sherrone Moore, and as you said, Jake, that win last week was really big to get some mojo back in this program.
Man, if there was ever a trap game,
I
I
know.
mean, this almost feels like it. I know that's crazy, but you talk about you beat Ohio State. The trap game is going on the road, short week to Purdue. They smoked them,
Mhm.
and then I thought, hey, maybe last week was a trap game because Illinois is coming to town, but they passed that test. It feels like, okay, all of a sudden Oregon, you passed all the tests. Hey,
Yeah.
this is a beat. This isn't the Michigan team of last year. You should win this one easy. And yet, did Michigan find something last week offensively? What concerns me though for Michigan is their third down defense. I'm shocked how poorly they've played on third down. And the thing is about Oregon, this offense is so explosive. If you give them an opportunity, they're going to take it. Like Dylan Gabriel
Yeah.
doesn't miss shots downfield. Their running game, they're able to, whether it's read option or organic runs, they're able to take advantage of the weak points of the defense. They got a great tight end in Terrence Ferguson. Their special teams are
Yeah.
also explosive. Like if you are weak in an area or if you are out of position, Oregon takes advantage of it. Michigan, to win this game, they would need some help from Oregon. Man, I just feel like the first quarter of this game is going to tell a lot. Michigan does not want, if anything, Michigan wants to try to get an early lead so they can kind of control the game, but they do not want to try to play from behind versus the Ducks.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see too how Dylan Gabriel plays. I mean, he is top of the Heisman list right now, top 3, 4 guys in contention, but still has like yet to have an elite performance. I mean, he played well against Ohio State and
Yeah.
won that game, which was important, but he's yet to have that kind of Cam Ward type moment where he's just taken over a game completely. He's thrown 5 picks this season, so I'm gonna be watching how Dylan Gabriel plays in a big game that is gonna have a big impact in the Big Ten, and like he needs to go out and play very well in this one.
All right, real quick before we wrap this thing up, college football playoff rankings come out next week. Obviously, we got Oregon. We talked about Penn State and Ohio State, and then Indiana. You ask a number of different people. On one end, it's true they haven't played anyone. On another end, neither did Michigan last year. And when you look at the points per game
Yeah.
differential, Indiana has a lot of similarities to Michigan. They are dominating their opponents. How many teams do you expect will be in that top 12 of the college football playoff rankings next week?
Yeah, I mean the question, really the only question is Indiana. Do they get in the top 12?
Well, I
Man,
wonder if Ohio State loses, how far they drop.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Right? Like,
That's a good. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Um, if Penn State loses, I think Penn State's still in the top 12. You agree with
they
that?
stay.
They
Yes.
stay. Now,
Oregon's in no matter what as well. Yes.
who is?
Oregon would be
Oh
in
yeah,
no
Oregon's
matter
in no matter
what.
what. Penn State's in no matter what.
The winner of Penn State, Ohio State is in no matter what.
Yeah,
If
you're right. You
Indiana
know what? Ohio
wins,
State probably wouldn't be in the top 12 then.
they might not be. Seriously, that's why this game is so important. They really might not be.
Yeah, with 2
That's
losses. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think that Indiana, it's going to be interesting. Right now, we have no clue how the committee, like we don't know how they're going to value these teams that are kind of in like the 9, 10, 11, 12 area of the rankings. Like we know what
yeah.
they've done when it's been the top 4, but how does the committee value an undefeated Indiana against a Texas A&M that has one loss against Notre Dame versus a Clemson with one loss to Georgia versus a 6-2 Alabama, or a 7-0 Iowa State. We don't know how they're gonna value those.
Yeah.
If the rankings came out right now today, I think Indiana would be like in the 13-14 range. I don't think they make the top 12. But as you said, anything can happen here, and if a couple of these teams lose, Indiana will be right there in the top 12.
I think they should be in there if that counts for
Yeah.
anything. So I don't have a vote,
That
but
that,
I think
that
they should
counts
be
for
in there.
something.
Yes, it does count for something. So, all right, well, I'm looking forward to this show next week, man. Both of our alma maters playing in big games.
That'll be fun.
As we said, I love Ohio State, Penn State. This is such a marquee game every year. Going to be sold out, beautiful crowd. Can't wait. So it's good to see you, man. Good to see you guys that are tuning in to the Butt and Breneman show, and we'll see you next week.